Hello, Tallahassee and FSU weather audience. Today we have our Tuesday edition of FSU weather. So let's talk about tonight's headlines. Well, we'll talk about fall. That's the big story, something that I look forward to talking about basically all show long. I look forward to these nice and cooler temperatures that we'll see on the back end of a cold front. But right now we're seeing some heavy rains that are drenching portions of the east, and that, of course, is associated with the cold front that will give us some cool temperatures. And then we have some fish storms and new areas of interest that we'll talk about as well. But all that and more on tonight's edition of FSU Weather. Hi, yes, I am back. Let's get started with some FSU weather Tuesday edition. So, looking at Doak Campbell Stadium right now, you can see that cloudy, mostly cloudy at least, but the sun is peering through the clouds. Of course, the clouds have been associated with a bunch of rain that we received pretty early on this afternoon, and it was a pretty big soaker. We actually had a flash flood warning here on campus, so something that was really a big soaker. Looking at the rain, you can see that it's making its way east and it's really dissipating along Panama City. And you can see that it's moving towards Live Oak. For tonight's forecast, you can see 70s as well, and tomorrow 80s as your high. And then tonight on FSU Weather, talk about storm chances as well as that cold front and some tropics. So all that and more, but now we'll throw it off to the desk with Riley.
Yes, well, it is a very wet evening across the East Coast today. Pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard, you are dealing with some threat of rainfall. And we are going to see this persist over the next couple of days. It's been a very wet pattern across the East Coast as of late, and it is going to continue for the short term. But we do have signs that a cold front is going to make its way through the majority of the region, and that is going to help not only cool things down, but dry things out as well. So we are looking forward to not only the cooler temperatures, but not having to bring that umbrella with us every day. So that's what we have for our top story, and that's what Chandler will be talking about at the wall in just a moment for you guys. It is the last day of summer. Tomorrow is the first day of fall. So it's pretty much a good story, I guess, to say we'll have a cold front moving through to pretty much kick off fall and start to cool down temperatures and give at least a little bit more of an autumn-like feel. Now let's go head off to the wall with Chandler, who is going to have the latest on this top story of a lot of heavy rains across the East Coast.
That is right. Let's talk about the East Coast. So currently you have a lot of moisture. Most of it's surging from the Gulf of Mexico, causing a lot of these showers to pop up seemingly out of nowhere, kind of like what we saw earlier today. So we have dew points all across the southeast. It's 70s, but you see that there is a cold front. There is a front that not only will bring cooler temperatures, but will bring drier conditions. 66 in Little Rock, they're already starting to feel that. Upper level water vapor, you can see there are some bigger clouds, taller clouds near the South Florida region around Miami. And again, along this cold front, you can see some clouds as well in Memphis and stretching down into Houston. Looking at wind speeds, we have winds coming out of the northwest. That is a very good indicator that you're experiencing a cold front. So let's look at that cold front. Look at that stretching from Houston up to Cincinnati. We're going to see temperatures cool down on the backside of this front, but of course first we must experience the rain, which we're seeing all across the area. We have rain in the Florida area off the coast of east coast of Florida, as well as into Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. You can see rain just pouring from south to north in Raleigh. And looking at West Virginia, you can also see that they're experiencing a lot of rain, probably having a few potential flash flooding events, although the National Weather Service will stay on top of that and keep them informed. And looking at the Chicago Midwestern area, you can also see that they have some showers associated with this huge and really strong cold front. Of course, with a strong cold front, it will bring cooler temperatures, but first it will bring a decent amount of rain. And you can see even all the way down here into Arkansas and Memphis, they're also experiencing some rain. You see even stronger storms that are making their way towards Interstate 55 outside of Little Rock. And look, let's see what the forecast has. Again, we see this huge cold front really making its way towards the mid-Atlantic, swirling a bit as you see the mid-latitude cyclone, that low-pressure system really starting to spin it up near Michigan. And taking a look a little farther south towards the Carolinas, again, it'll make its way through Tennessee and the Appalachian Mountains before it makes all the way through the East Coast as well. And taking a look even at Florida, we see a similar sign that we'll also experience that cold front. Now, of course, this is probably an exception for South Florida residents, but at least for Tallahassee, we'll get to see those cooler temperatures. So rain, rain, go away. That is the story. Rain lingers along East Coast over the next few days. Cold front brings cooler temperatures, and we'll have a beautiful weekend. So Riley, let's talk about the local.
Yeah, so a lot of that wet weather that is associated with the majority of the East Coast right now is something being seen currently in our local Tallahassee area. Looking over Joe Campbell Stadium, if this was just a couple hours ago, you really would have seen a strong storm moving its way through, not seeing much visibility, but now, we had the storms roll through a little bit, some sun peeked out again. Those temperatures are a little cooler though. We were in the mid to upper 80s today. We are now at 74 degrees. So we have cooled down a little bit because of that rainfall. And it really has been a very nice day. Let's see what graphics are behind me right now because it seems like the clicker is doing something a little fancy. But this looks like what we just had. And if we look today at our temperature almanac, we did hit that mid 80 degree mark of 86. Nowhere near that record of 102 though, and we woke up a little bit on the warmer side at 72 degrees. And as we head throughout the day, we really started to warm up after that noon time frame. This really helps bring a lot of that thunderstorm activity to our area in that mid-afternoon hour before we really drop between 3 and 4. You could tell when we had that thunderstorm because we dropped 12 degrees. That was a pretty strong storm that moved through our area. And now we're 76 here in Tallahassee where we had the rain. Up towards Donaldsonville, it's still 85. They didn't really have a strong storm to knock off those temperatures like we did here. But it is still very, very moist across the region. You step outside and you still feel that humidity, which is why we still have some showers in the area. We see that storm in that storm report from earlier today, from the storm that did move through Tallahassee, now weakening as it heads towards Live Oak. Currently, we do have a lot of wet weather that's been sticking around, and that is associated with this stationary front that we can see. The sign of relief, though, is behind me, guys. That cold front is on our way, and that is going to make things a little bit drier. As we head overnight into tomorrow, the spotty showers will consist. You will have that chance of seeing some rain. Not 100%. It'll be spotty popcorn showers across the radar, which will keep us a little warmer into tonight. That humidity will retain a lot of that daytime heating. We'll stay in the mid-70s tonight. For tomorrow, we'll warm back up into the upper 80s. So it's going to be another hot day with a chance for storms for your first day of fall. But we do have a sign of that changing. It's going to be hit or miss showers all day tomorrow if you do want to walk that dog. So do be prepared for that. First day of fall, not going to feel like it. Second day, the conditions dry out, but we will still be in the upper 80s. But look at that weekend forecast, guys. We start to really dry out, have some nice football weather, Chandler, for this weekend, and not really seeing much in terms of rain chances into early parts of next week.
That is right. And so we just looked at the local. We just looked at all these rain chances for tomorrow. But let's look at the Sunshine State, which also has a lot of rain in its forecast. Looking at Gainesville, currently they have experienced some rain. You can actually see the rain on the camera. You also see Panama City Beach. They cleared up after they experienced some of that rain earlier this afternoon. Miami, overcast. Orlando is a little bit better, but also a slightly bit overcast. Looking at those current temperatures, we're seeing 70s and 80s for the most part across the Florida Peninsula, 83 in Pensacola, 88 in Tampa, and then we go down into the Key West, 84 degrees. Looking at the upper level water vapor, you can see these larger cloud tops associated with some of that rain and some of that moisture that South Florida and Southwest Florida in particular are experiencing. And looking actually at the radar, you see that there's a lot of rain off the coast, but there is even some rain in Southwest Florida, so they're definitely experiencing a good rain soaker today. But zooming in our area, we've seen those showers really starting to clear out as they make their way along I-10 towards North Florida. Speaking of North Florida, let's look at Jacksonville. Well, we see those showers start to scoot their way south, so really they're just riding along Florida, giving Florida the full soaker today. Looking at the central Florida area, you can see Tampa, experiencing some rain showers that are really producing a lot of lightning. So these are slightly strong, maybe not severe, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Fort Myers also experiencing a lot of rain, again associated with this downward movement of these showers. And looking at the future radar, well, we see that this cold front associated with the clouds that are really just making their way off into the Florida Peninsula, they'll stall right around central Florida. And looking at our Florida forecast, Pensacola, you guys can expect the 80s for the next 3 days, which is pretty great for our area. Looking at Jacksonville, 88, but then you see a pretty good cool down of 5 degrees Thursday and Friday. Of course, though, look at that rain. Again, a toss-up for rain showers all throughout the day tomorrow. Again, Orlando seeing the same thing both Wednesday and Thursday. They won't really see that cool off because the front does stall once it makes its way to central Florida. And this story is also the same thing for Tampa. Again, mid-80s and rain showers for Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. Miami, again, rain showers basically every single day with upper 80s. For tonight's forecast, you can see 60s is the story for North Florida, 70s for the South Florida area, and tomorrow you can expect a lot of 80s for the most part in all of the Florida Peninsula and even Panhandle.
Well, Florida might be the hottest place in the country, Chandler, but we do have a lot of other hot places and humid places as well. Pretty much everywhere in front of this cold front right now is pretty humid. As you can see with all the rainfall, there's a lot of moisture in that atmosphere, but behind it, a really strong blocking high here that's been bringing some cooler temperatures to the mountains in the northwest and a lot of drier air behind that, so there is a pattern change incoming. We're a little bit warmer now, 71, 72 there, Billings and Salt Lake City, 64 degrees, a little chilly up in the mountains in Denver. Keeping on to the warm weather, though, along the Gulf Coast, 82 degrees there in New Orleans, even 79 degrees in Washington, D.C., a lot of southerly air influence in the East Coast, as you can see, bringing quite a bit of this rainfall. Now, we do have a lot of those heavy showers just off of the eastern coast of Florida right now, but there's still a lot of that feeding into places like the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic. We've had a lot of flood alerts, advisories across much of the East Coast today associated with all this rain we've been seeing. Now we have a little dry pocket of air right now in between the two major wet weather making systems right now. It still doesn't mean we're dry tonight in Tallahassee. We do have a lot of chance for rain consisting until this very obvious cold front here does make its way through, and it's going to, that little bit of dry air around Oklahoma you see there, right? That is going to extend farther to the south and the east. So these dew points right now, we see how moist it is in the eastern half of the United States, but the other story in the country is how dry it is out to the west. And we see that with our drought monitor, a lot of extreme to exceptional drought across many parts of the west, and unfortunately there is not any rain incoming for these areas. It's staying dry in the Pacific Northwest, staying dry as well in the Pacific Southwest, and all that rain is where we don't need it, guys. That rain is on the eastern seaboard, and it is continuing to pile up on places that just don't need any more rain. And we know all the flooding we've seen from tropical systems, everything in the northeast, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, where we've had a multitude of tropical systems this year already. Somewhere that gets tropical systems quite often is Florida. Luckily, right now, we're just dealing with some tropical downpours, nothing from the Atlantic that is anything to worry about in terms of hurricanes. farther up north, look at all this wet air and heavy rain feeding into the Carolinas right now. If you're in Raleigh, it's a good day to stay indoors. Now out towards the northeast, we see portions of like West Virginia here into Virginia. We see some green outlines here that indicates flash flood watches. So if you are venturing out, do make sure you're not driving through any flooded roadways. That would be a dangerous situation. Had some stronger storms moving through Arkansas earlier today. Those are starting to move their way into Mississippi. None of these have been deemed severe, but you will be hearing some loud thunder booms out there in northern portions of Mississippi over the next couple hours. And into the next couple days. Notice this is tomorrow morning. We have the rain moving into portions of the northeast, but notice how this low just lingers around here. So we're going to see quite a bit of rainfall, and notice how our temperatures will be a little bit cooler in places like the Midwest tomorrow because of that. Only 64 degrees there in Chicago. Staying warm though in the south, and look at how hot it is there in Phoenix, Chandler, 103 degrees.
I don't know. The South, I would argue, has them beat just when it comes to heat index on most days. But looking at our forecast, well, we'll be surprised, but we'll actually experience some fall weather for once in September. That's crazy. So looking at the current conditions above Doak Campbell Stadium, we have the sun that's going to try to set. Of course, once we start talking about later on in the semester, we'll actually get to see the sun set with the daylight savings time ending. But right now, 74 degrees, mostly cloudy, associated with that rain that just pulled away, like Riley was mentioning. And let's see here. We were starting off with 73 degrees at 6 a.m., but we really started to make our way up into the 80s by 11 and 10 a.m., and we peaked around 2 or 3 p.m. before we got those showers that really cooled us down almost immediately. And that is, of course, associated with that cold front and that big, huge disturbance that Riley was mentioning earlier. And, of course, we can still experience that when we are looking at the radar and when we're looking at the coverage of the temperatures. 76 degrees in Tallahassee. We're looking at 80s in Apalachicola and anywhere else, really, because the showers really impacted Leon County for the most part. And those current dew temperatures, our dew points really, honestly, are pretty intense. We're starting to get close to 80. 80 is usually when you see a lot of that moisture. And you see at Florida radar, again, that moisture, at least the rain associated with that moisture, is starting to move towards along the I-10 corridor towards Jacksonville. And we have that moisture sinking down towards Tampa and Miami. But zooming back into Tallahassee, again, those showers really starting to make their way out of our viewing area, which is great for the Big Bend. But looking at future radar, we can see these showers right here associated with the actual cold front. They're going to sweep through in the afternoon, evening hours, and we'll expect a pretty rapid cool down over the night. But tonight, we'll see 72 degrees and a lot of clouds associated with these pop-up showers across the Big Bend. Tomorrow, again, it's a toss-up. We'll see potential for showers, 82 degrees, and thunderstorms. And for the dog walk forecast, I would not recommend walking your dog just yet. Hold on until we start seeing these cooler temperatures on Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend. Noon, 76 degrees, and 3 p.m., 80 degrees. Once we go into Thursday and Friday, well, we start to see that huge cool down, at least in our high temperature. Our low temperature stays around the 70s for the most part, but it'll be a great experience overall. Now we're going to toss things off to Riley at the desk to talk more about what's going on around us.
Yeah, Chandler, and that forecast for Tallahassee does look a lot drier than what it has been. I think those low temperatures might be getting a little bit lower than the 70s. I think those numbers are actually wrong. So I would just say that I think there's a little glitch in our system because I do think we should be hitting the upper 50s as we head into Thursday night into Friday night. It looks like we might have an override on there that was not fixed, but the football game will be on Saturday, and that is a home game. And the good news for that, guys, is it will be dry outside. We're not expecting any chance for some rain that could impact the game by delaying it or anything else of that sort. Unfortunately, it does not look like we have a better team for that. But the one thing we haven't really discussed yet tonight is the tropics. The tropics are still fairly active. We have some systems out there right now, none of which are too strong, but there are some signs that we could get some stronger storms in the future, and exactly where those track might be a little bit more concerning for the United States. We have a lot of time to look at that stuff, but we are in the pretty much still the peak of hurricane season. So Chandler is going to talk about that now with us at the wall, and it's a pretty active tropics, right?
That is right. Looking at what's going on throughout the North Atlantic, Riley, we have Rose right here, just above what is 98L down here pretty far south. And this is tropical storm, or tropical depression, Peter, excuse me. It just got downgraded a couple hours ago. And speaking of tropical depression, Peter, we're really seeing that this thing is a very lopsided storm. All the convection is on the eastern side of the circulation, which of course means that it is an unstable storm. It does not have a stable structure. It will not be able to produce strong winds. And well, the winds are just 35 miles per hour, and it's very much so a weak storm. And looking at the dry air around it, it's also suffering from some dry air in the south, as well as some dry air to the north. So again, a lot of things going against it. And it is going to charge right into that dry air. And by the time it makes it through the dry air, we'll expect that it won't be a tropical depression anymore. It will make its transition into a post-tropical system. And speaking of another storm in the Atlantic Basin, we have Rose. Rose, also a pretty lopsided storm with convection on the eastern side of this circulation. But it is still a tropical storm. We'll talk about how long, though, it will keep that status. Winds are currently 40 miles per hour. Water vapor, again, it is also dealing with a lot of dry air as well. That is really choking out the storm. And, well, I'll just say, making a little flower pun, it is going to shrivel up as it experiences more of that drier conditions. Looking at the projected path, it will charge right into that dry air, and it will make itself a tropical depression before it transitions into a post-tropical storm. Looking at Invest 98L, though, it is right now pretty small, pretty compact as well, but that does not mean it might not be a danger. In fact, because it is so far south, we do expect that it will at least pose a potential threat if it does develop as it makes its way towards the Caribbean, although there's a lot of question marks surrounding that particular outcome. Right now, it has a 90% chance of development over the next 5 days, and it is feeding off of these sea surface temperatures, which are above 80 degrees, and really, it will track right around here where it's still very warm, and it will obviously feed off of this warm water and potentially strengthen as it reaches the Lesser Antilles, which is the Eastern Caribbean. And looking at the water vapor, it is not suffering from that dry air. So that is the moral of the story. We have mid-level spin. Well, we can see that there is a bit of that spin action with 98L. So again, it is trying to get its act together and become a tropical depression quite soon. Also, we're looking at another potential system, and it is coming from the remnants of Odette. You can see that the track really made its way across the East Coast and curved out to sea. And you see that moisture? Well, that moisture might form into another system, but it has a 40% chance of development. We are not sure yet if we'll see another system, but even if it does develop, it will be a fish storm. Of course, while that one, if it does develop, is a fish storm, we have cause to believe that the other system, 98L, may not be. So, of course, make sure you're prepared as we make our way throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, Chandler, it's almost like Odette is trying to pull another Paulette of 2020 almost, where it dissipated, then reformed. But now we are at the time of the night. We pretty much recap our entire show with not the Atlantic. This is some, we'll just get in front of that. But Invest 98L, here we go. This is what we were just talking about. This is probably the most concerning tropical feature of the Atlantic Basin right now. 90% chance of developing over the next 5 days as it heads towards the west. Now, over the country right now, back in the lower 48, we do see a lot of dry air in the west, but if you head to the east coast, there's a lot of wet weather, and that wet weather is associated in the south, at least, with what we have a couple low pressure systems. We have an occluded or stationary front here that's really keeping a lot of wet weather. We're staying very wet across the Sunshine State of Florida. Southern Florida, the radar is a little bit more filled in. We saw some storms move through Tallahassee earlier today. Now, as we head throughout our very wet, as we said, future radar here in the southeast, we are going to see that cold front move through as we head over the next couple of days. And that is going to really bring a lot drier air behind it. Nationally across the country, staying a little cooler, where we have an upper level low hanging around in the Midwest. Staying hot, though, pretty much everywhere else, or warm for where we usually are.
That is right. And we'll take one last look at the local before we close up shop for today. So taking a look at what we have currently experienced over Doak Campbell, 74 degrees, mostly cloudy again. Those clouds are associated with that moisture that's currently making its way along I-10 corridor. And the current temperatures, again, associated with that system that we just experienced, 76 in Tallahassee, but over in Donaldsonville, where they did not experience that rain, 85 degrees. And looking at the Florida radar, it's really the moisture is making its way across North Florida and then down the peninsula. So again, a lot of rainy moisture in the East Coast, like Riley was mentioning. Zooming into Tallahassee, again, these showers are really making their way across I-10 towards Lake City. So if you're in Lake City, expect to experience a little bit of showers. And looking at the future radar, again, really things start to boil up and then they calm down until we get into the afternoon hours, and we'll experience a potential cold front that will at least cool us down, both humidity and temperatures. But we can't look forward to that just yet. Tonight's forecast, 70s across most of the Big Bend region. And looking at tomorrow, we'll see 80s across the Big Bend region, 85 in Carabel and 88 in Tallahassee. For the week ahead, again, 80s for Wednesday and Thursday, rain chances tomorrow, but then we'll really calm down. So Riley, let's wrap up, shall we?
Absolutely. It is the last day of summer, and it still feels like summer out there for now. We're going to cool down a little bit to the low 80s and dry. Oh no, is it too cold to go to the pool yet? Nah, I think 80 degrees is barely enough to be going to the pool. But you can always follow us there on FSU Weather at Twitter, and like us on Facebook. All these social medias are the best way to reach out to us, and watch us live on YouTube every night at 6 p.m. on weekdays, and we post some updates on our Instagram as well, sometimes at FSU Weather. So I do want to thank everyone so much for joining in to this Tuesday edition. A lot of wet weather to talk about this week. By this time next week, things should be pretty dry compared to what they've been recently on the East Coast. Hopefully, somehow, some way, we can get some rain out to our friends out there in the West where they're dealing with fires and droughts. But unfortunately, that's not always how it works. I'm student meteorologist Riley Winch. This is FSU.